The envelope arrived on the day she lost everything. Inside was a check for $500,000 and a note that read, "You taught me what kind of person I never wanted to be. Thank you." Katherine Sterling had built her life on appearances. The right clothes, the right address, the right friends who drove the right cars and summered in the right places. At 53, she had the penthouse office, the designer wardrobe, the luxury sedan. VP of Marketing at Sterling & Associates, a company that still bore her ex-husband's name, even though he'd left her 5 years ago for his 28-year-old assistant. But Katherine had kept the title, kept the lifestyle, kept pretending that everything was exactly as it should be. What she didn't tell anyone was that the company was failing, that her position was mostly ceremonial now, that she'd been leveraging credit cards and loans to maintain the illusion of success while everything crumbled beneath her expensive heels. She'd become mean somewhere along the way, sharp-tongued, quick to belittle anyone she deemed beneath her. It made her feel powerful when everything else felt like it was slipping through her fingers. She didn't realize that cruelty has a way of coming back around. She had no idea that the janitor she'd humiliated 15 years ago would become the answer to prayers she was too proud to say out loud. It had happened on a Tuesday in 2008. Katherine remembered because it was the day before her 40th birthday, and she'd been in a particularly foul mood. The company had just landed a major client, and Katherine's team was working late, preparing the presentation. She'd been rushing down the hallway, juggling her phone and a stack of folders, when she collided with someone coming around the corner. Papers flew everywhere. Her coffee splashed across the tile floor. "Watch where you're going," she'd snapped, before even looking up. It was the janitor. Young, maybe early 20s, with kind eyes and an apologetic smile. He wore the gray uniform of the cleaning crew, and he immediately dropped to his knees to help gather her papers. "I'm so sorry, ma'am, I didn't see you. Let me help. Don't touch those." Katherine snatched the papers from his hands. "Do you have any idea how important these are? How much this presentation is worth?" "I really am sorry. I can clean up the coffee." "Of course you can. That's your job, isn't it?" She looked him up and down with barely disguised contempt. Cleaning up other people's messes must be nice. No real responsibility. No real pressure. Something flickered in his eyes. Hurt. But he kept his voice steady. "Everyone has their struggles, ma'am." "Oh, please." Katherine laughed, cold and sharp. "Don't compare your struggles to mine. You push a mop. I run campaigns that make or break million-dollar accounts. We are not the same." She'd walked away without another word, leaving him kneeling in spilled coffee. What she didn't know was that the young man had been working 3 jobs to support his dying mother, that he was taking night classes, studying business, that he'd remember her words for the rest of his life, and use them as fuel. 15 years later, Katherine's world fell apart in slow motion. The company went bankrupt. Her position was eliminated. Her savings, which she'd thought would last, turned out to be mostly smoke and mirrors. Investments that had tanked. Credit that had run out. She lost the penthouse apartment. Had to sell the car. Moved into a small 1-bedroom in a part of the city she used to drive past without looking. For the first time in her adult life, Katherine Sterling was truly alone and truly broke. She'd applied for dozens of jobs. But at 53, overqualified and desperate, she kept getting rejected. Companies wanted younger employees, hungrier employees, employees who didn't carry the weight of failure on their resumes. She was sitting in her cramped apartment, staring at an eviction notice, when the envelope arrived. Plain manila. No return address. Her name written in neat handwriting she didn't recognize. Inside was a check, made out to Katherine Sterling. $500,000, and a note on simple white paper. "Dear Ms. Sterling, you probably don't remember me. 15 years ago you told me I was nobody, that my struggles didn't compare to yours, that we weren't the same. You were right about one thing. We aren't the same. But not for the reasons you thought. I've enclosed this check because I believe people deserve second chances. Even people who never thought to offer them to others. Use it wisely. Use it kindly. And maybe remember that the person mopping floors might be someone's whole world. Michael Chen. Katherine's hands started shaking. Michael Chen, the janitor. The young man she'd humiliated over spilled coffee. She did what anyone would do. She searched for him online. What she found made her stomach drop. Michael Chen, founder and CEO of Chen Enterprises, a tech startup that had exploded in the last decade, worth billions. There were articles, interviews, Forbes profiles. In one interview from 6 months ago, the reporter had asked about his humble beginnings. I worked as a janitor while putting myself through school, Michael had said. Those were the hardest years of my life. My mother was sick. Medical bills were crushing us. I worked 3 jobs and barely slept. But those experiences taught me something crucial about human dignity and worth. The reporter had pressed, "Was there a moment that shaped your philosophy?" Michael had smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Someone once told me that my struggles didn't matter because I was just a janitor, that we weren't the same. That moment taught me exactly what kind of leader I wanted to be. One who sees value in every person, regardless of their position. Katherine closed her laptop. She couldn't breathe. He'd become everything she'd pretended to be. And he'd done it through the very struggles she'd dismissed as meaningless. She'd mocked a man at his lowest point, and he'd responded, 15 years later, by saving her at hers. Katherine did something she hadn't done in years. She cried, not pretty tears. Ugly, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken inside her. Years of cruelty, of using other people as stepping stones, of measuring worth by bank accounts and job titles. It all came crashing down on her at once. She'd been so wrong, about everything. The next morning, she went to Chen Enterprises. The building was glass and steel and beautiful. Security tried to stop her at the front desk. "I need to see Michael Chen," she said. "Please, tell him Katherine Sterling is here." She expected to be turned away, expected security to escort her out. Instead, 10 minutes later, she was being led to the executive floor. Michael's office overlooked the city. He stood when she entered, and she barely recognized him. Gone was the tired young man in the gray uniform. This was a confident, successful man who'd built an empire from nothing, but his eyes were still kind. "Ms. Sterling," he said quietly. "I'm glad you came." "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why would you give me that money? After what I said to you, after how I treated you." Michael gestured to the chairs by the window. They sat. "Do you know why I succeeded?" he asked. "It wasn't just hard work or intelligence. It was because when I was at my lowest, someone showed me kindness. A teacher who waived her tutoring fees. A neighbor who brought soup when my mother was dying. A stranger who paid for my textbooks when my financial aid fell through." He leaned forward. "Those people saved me. And they taught me that we all have power. Power to lift others up or push them down. You pushed me down, Ms. Sterling, and it hurt. But it also taught me exactly who I didn't want to be." "I'm so sorry," Katherine whispered. "I was cruel. I was wrong. You didn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that." "No," he agreed. "They don't. But we all have moments we're not proud of. The question is what we do after." "Why give me a second chance?" Michael smiled. "Because 15 years ago, I needed one and didn't get it from you. I decided I never wanted anyone to feel that way if I could help it. Even you. Especially you. It wasn't just money he'd given her. It was a mirror that forced her to see exactly who she'd become, and a ladder to climb out of the hole she'd dug with her own cruelty. Katherine didn't spend the money on herself. Not at first. She paid her rent. Then she started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping other professionals who'd fallen on hard times. She used her marketing skills to help small businesses that couldn't afford agencies. She became a mentor to young women trying to break into corporate America, and every time someone thanked her, she thought of Michael Chen and the gift he'd given her. Not just financial security, but a chance to become someone better. A year later, she sent him a letter. "Dear Michael, you gave me money, but more importantly, you gave me a mirror. I see now what I'd become, someone who measured worth by status instead of character. Someone who forgot that we're all just people doing our best. I'm trying every day to be better, to be kinder, to remember that everyone has struggles and all of them matter. Thank you for teaching me what real success looks like. It's not about what you have. It's about who you help along the way." Michael kept that letter in his desk drawer, and sometimes, when he had difficult decisions to make, he'd read it and remember that people can change, that second chances aren't just gifts we give others. They're gifts we give ourselves. Sometimes the people we hurt become our greatest teachers, not because they seek revenge, but because they choose grace instead. And in that grace, we find the chance to become who we were always meant to be. Have you ever been given a second chance by someone you wronged? Or have you given one to someone who hurt you? Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is choose kindness when we have every right to choose otherwise. What would you do if you could go back and change one moment when you weren't your best self?